Have you ever snapped at someone you love, said words that cut deep and can't be taken back, and then sat alone in the quiet, wondering, why did I do that? That's not the real me. Or given in to a sudden impulse, anger, jealousy, greed, or something else, and woken up the next day filled with a heavy regret, ashamed of the person you see in the mirror? That quiet frustration, that deep fear of losing control over your own actions. It's real, it's painful, and it haunts so many of us. You're not broken or weak. You're simply human. And today, we're going to look at it directly, without judgment, and find the path forward. If this speaks to you, even a little, hit that like button right now. It helps others who are struggling find this message. And subscribe to the channel with notifications on, so you never miss the practical wisdom that can help you build a stronger, calmer, more virtuous life through Stoicism. Number 1, what is the shadow self? Deep inside, every single one of us lives a hidden part of the personality known as the shadow self. This is not some dark, evil monster waiting to destroy us, but rather the quiet collection of all the traits, impulses, desires, and emotions that we have pushed away over the years because we judge them as bad, unacceptable, weak, or shameful. From the earliest days of childhood, we learn from parents, teachers, and society what is considered good behavior and what is not. We hide our anger to seem polite, suppress selfishness to appear generous, bury fear to look brave, or even stifle raw ambition because it might make us seem arrogant. Over time, these rejected parts of ourselves do not simply disappear or fade away. Instead, they sink deeper into the unconscious mind, gathering together to form what Carl Jung called the shadow. Carl Jung, the profound Swiss psychologist who first clearly defined this concept, described the shadow as the unknown dark side of our personality, the parts we do not want to acknowledge or show to the world. It includes not only the obviously negative urges like rage, envy, greed, or lust, but surprisingly also positive qualities and strengths that we might have denied because they were once shamed or punished, such as fierce creativity, healthy assertiveness, or bold independence. The shadow is a timeless reality in human nature. It has existed in every person throughout history because we all create a public mask, what Jung called the persona, to present only our polished, socially acceptable side while hiding everything else away in the darkness. When the shadow remains completely hidden and unexamined, it actually grows stronger and more influential in the silence of the unconscious. We go through life believing we are fully in control, presenting ourselves as calm, reasonable, and virtuous people most of the time. But all that repressed energy continues to build pressure beneath the surface, like water held back by a massive dam, waiting patiently for even the smallest crack, a moment of exhaustion, stress, temptation, or emotional trigger, to finally burst through in ways we never intended or planned. This hidden eruption is exactly why regret can feel so heavy and confusing afterward. The actions or words come directly from us, yet they often feel foreign, almost as if someone else took over for a moment. We sit there afterward and say things like, "I don't know what came over me," or "That's not who I really am." In truth, it was the shadow self briefly taking the wheel when our conscious mind was distracted or weakened. The first step toward real relief comes from understanding this clearly. Regret is not proof that you are a failure or a bad person, but simply a clear signal that something deep inside is asking for attention and acknowledgement. Stoicism gives us a powerful and timeless way to approach this inner reality without illusion or self-deception. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his private journal every day to examine his own flaws and impulses with complete honesty. By calmly naming and observing the shadow, we begin to see it not as a dangerous enemy to fight against, but as a neglected and misunderstood part of the whole self that simply needs to be brought into the light. This knowledge is deeply practical because it breaks the painful cycle of surprise, shame, and repeated regret. Face this truth with calm acceptance. You have a shadow self, just as every great and wise person throughout history has had one. There are no exceptions. Accepting this basic fact about human nature is the true foundation of lasting inner strength. It quietly ends the exhausting inner war of denial and self-deception, and it opens the door to genuine self-mastery and peace. From this place of clear understanding, regret stops being a harsh tormentor and instead becomes a wise teacher that guides you toward greater wisdom and virtue. Number 2, how the shadow causes actions we regret. The shadow self causes those actions we later regret precisely because repression gives it hidden power over us. The harder we push it down, repeatedly telling ourselves, "I would never think or do something like that," the more fiercely it rebels when the opportunity arises. Jung taught clearly that whatever we resist and deny not only persists but often grows stronger in the unconscious. Even a small, everyday trigger, such as feeling criticized, rejected, tired, or insecure, can suddenly unleash a flood of long-stored emotional energy that we never saw coming. Consider anger as a common example. If we have always suppressed it in order to appear kind, patient, and composed, the shadow holds onto that anger until one day it explodes in a moment of weakness. We lash out harshly, say things we instantly wish we could take back, hurt people we care about, and then feel deep regret and shame. Or take envy. When we deny it openly and pretend we are above such feelings, it quietly turns into secret resentment that leads to gossip, passive-aggressive behavior, or even subtle sabotage, actions that leave us feeling small and ashamed afterward. The regret feels so painful afterward because these shadow-driven actions directly clash with the values and identity we hold consciously. We genuinely want to live as patient, generous, wise, and virtuous people, in the way the Stoics modeled, but the shadow pulls us suddenly toward raw impulse and passion. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, warned repeatedly that unchecked desires and passions disturb the soul and lead us away from reason. The shadow is essentially those desires and passions operating in disguise outside our awareness. Another way the shadow creates regret is through projection. We see our own hidden and denied flaws reflected in other people and then judge them harshly for it, often creating unnecessary conflict. The anger we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves becomes intense outrage at someone else's temper. The greed we hide turns into criticism of another's ambition. This outward fighting distracts us from the real inner work and frequently leads to more regrettable words, arguments, or broken relationships. In quieter moments, the shadow often tries to speak to us through fantasies, dreams, or sudden intrusive thoughts, but most of us push these away or ignore them completely. Over months and years, this builds until the shadow briefly possesses us. During heated arguments, moments of addiction or temptation, or moral slips, leaving behind emotional wreckage and a heavy sense of self-betrayal. The Stoics would describe this as temporarily losing our guiding reason to unchecked passion. Jung would call it the shadow taking temporary control. Yet even in the pain of regret, there is something hopeful. The very fact that you feel regret deeply shows that your higher self, your reason and your values, still holds the ultimate authority inside you. The discomfort is proof that you truly care about living with virtue and integrity. Use this pain wisely and directly. Trace every regrettable action back to its hidden root in the shadow. This honest tracing weakens the shadow's automatic grip and slowly transforms past mistakes into lasting wisdom for the future. Number 3. The Stoic path to facing the shadow. Stoicism provides timeless and practical tools for meeting the shadow self without fear, avoidance, or harsh self-judgment. The most powerful place to begin is with daily self-examination, exactly as Seneca recommended. At the end of each day, Sit quietly and review your actions, thoughts, and emotions with calm honesty. Ask yourself directly, where did I fall short today? What hidden impulse drove that choice? This regular practice gently brings the shadow out of darkness and into the clear light of awareness. The Stoics understood deeply that strong passions and impulses arise from false judgments about what truly matters in life. We mistakenly judge external things, praise, wealth, comfort, or other people's opinions as essential to our happiness, when in reality only our own virtue and character are up to us. The shadow thrives on these wrong judgments, feeding hidden fears, greeds, and angers. Correct the judgment calmly and firmly, and the passion loses its fuel and intensity. Another Stoic practice is voluntary discomfort. Deliberately choose to fast for a day, endure cold or heat, practice silence, or face small criticisms on purpose. This trains the mind and character to remain steady and reasonable even when the shadow begins to stir under pressure. Like building a muscle through consistent effort, self-control grows stronger over time, making impulsive and regrettable actions far less likely. The practice of premeditation of adversity is equally powerful. Take time each morning or evening to vividly imagine possible challenges, loss, insult, failure, temptation, and remind yourself that these things are ultimately indifferent and outside your true control. This mental preparation strengthens you so that real-life triggers do not catch you off guard and awaken the shadow unexpectedly. Epictetus lived this practice fully, turning the hardships of slavery into inner freedom through unbreakable self-control. Always return to the core Stoic distinction. Focus only on what is truly up to you, your judgments, choices, and actions, and release attachment to everything else. The shadow often gains power from our hidden fear of losing control over externals like reputation or outcomes. By letting go of this illusion with calm acceptance, you starve the shadow of its energy. Regret naturally fades when you live knowing that only your virtue is genuinely yours to guard. Approach yourself with direct honesty, but without excuses or unnecessary harshness. Just clear, calm observation. Stoicism is the path of wise self-mastery, not self-punishment. Facing the shadow in this balanced way slowly builds an inner peace that cannot be shaken by impulses or circumstances. You become the true master of your inner world, no longer a surprised victim of hidden forces. Number 4, practical steps to integrate the shadow. Integration means consciously bringing the shadow into awareness and giving it a proper place under the guidance of reason and virtue, rather than letting it rule from the darkness. A simple and powerful way to start is through regular journaling. After any moment of regret or strong emotion, write about it honestly, without judgment. Describe exactly what happened, how you felt, and then ask deeper questions. What unmet need was behind it? What fear or desire was really driving the impulse? Train yourself to notice triggers in daily life as they arise. When irritation, jealousy, or any strong feeling begins to rise, pause for a moment, breathe slowly, and silently name it. This is anger from my shadow, or this is fear speaking. Simply observing it calmly, like watching clouds pass in the sky, weakens its automatic power and prevents it from turning into regrettable words or actions. Take time in quiet moments to actively dialogue with the shadow. Imagine it as a separate figure sitting across from you, and ask gently what it really wants or needs. Often, you will discover it is seeking basic things like safety, respect, acknowledgement, or freedom. Once you understand this, meet those needs in wise and virtuous ways rather than through impulsive reactions. The Stoics teach us to channel raw energy toward excellence instead of destruction. Do not forget the positive parts hidden in the shadow. If you once suppressed assertiveness to avoid conflict, Now practice speaking truth calmly and kindly. If creativity or passion was shamed in the past, begin expressing it constructively today. Integrating these hidden strengths turns what felt like weakness into real power, while also reducing the explosive pull of purely negative impulses. Practice self-forgiveness for past regrets with genuine compassion. Those actions came from an unseen part of you that was doing the best it could with limited awareness at the time. Releasing shame through understanding frees up tremendous energy for growth and virtue. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily of human imperfection and frailty. This gentle humility is the key to integrating the shadow without unnecessary suffering. Make integration a lifelong daily practice rather than a one-time event. The shadow evolves as you grow and face new challenges, so regular honest reflection keeps everything in healthy balance. Over time, your actions begin to align naturally with your deepest values and true self. Regret becomes increasingly rare, replaced by a quiet confidence and ease in living according to reason and nature. Number 5, the freedom of a whole self. When the shadow is consciously integrated rather than repressed, you finally become a whole and undivided person. No more sudden inner betrayals or surprising outbursts from hidden parts. The energy that was once wasted on denial, shame, and inner conflict now flows freely into clear, purposeful action. Daily life begins to feel lighter, more authentic, and deeply grounded. Old regrets lose their sharp sting because you now understand their true source and purpose. Past mistakes become valuable lessons rather than ongoing sources of torment. You meet life's challenges with genuine stoic calm, responding with courage instead of hidden fear, justice instead of resentment, and wisdom instead of impulse. Your relationships naturally deepen and improve. With less projection, you see other people more clearly and meet them with real understanding and compassion. You forgive their shadow-driven moments because you have made peace with your own. Unnecessary conflicts decrease, while trust, closeness, and mutual respect grow steadily. True inner strength emerges from this wholeness. The raw, vital energy of a shadow, its instincts, passions, creativity, and drive, is no longer fighting against you, but serving your reason and virtue. Like a powerful fire that is carefully tended, it warms and illuminates rather than burns out of control. This is the deepest Stoic freedom, a soul undisturbed by either inner turmoil or outer storms. Both Jung and the ancient Stoics point to the same profound truth. Real growth and enlightenment do not come from pretending we are only light and goodness, but from courageously making the darkness conscious and guiding it with reason, virtue, and wisdom. Wholeness is achieved not by denying half of ourselves, but by embracing and directing all of it toward what is good. Number 6, common shadows in modern life. In our modern world, certain shadows appear again and again because daily life constantly pressures us to hide parts of ourselves in order to fit in, succeed, or avoid judgment. One of the most common is the shadow of perfectionism. We push away any hint of failure, weakness, or imperfection from early age, telling ourselves we must always appear strong, competent, and in control. Over time, this repressed vulnerability builds quietly until it erupts in harsh self-criticism, burnout, or sudden breakdowns when life inevitably shows us our limits. Another widespread shadow is the hidden desire for power or control. Many of us were taught that wanting influence, recognition, or dominance is selfish or wrong, so we bury it deep and present ourselves as humble and easygoing. Yet this denied drive does not vanish. It leaks out in passive-aggressive ways, micromanaging others, or quiet resentment toward those who openly succeed, leading to actions and attitudes we later regret deeply. The shadow of repressed sexuality or sensuality affects countless people in a society that often shames natural desires. We learn to suppress passion, playfulness, or even healthy appetite to appear proper and disciplined. When ignored too long, this energy can burst forth in impulsive choices, secret behaviors, or sudden overindulgence that clashes with our conscious values and leaves lasting shame. Social media amplifies the shadow of envy and comparison. We publicly show only our highlights while privately denying feelings of jealousy toward others' lives, bodies, or achievements. This hidden envy festers until it turns into subtle criticism, gossip, or self-sabotage, behaviors that feel foreign to our better self and bring quiet regret afterward. The shadow of unexpressed grief or sadness is common too. In a culture that prizes constant positivity and productivity, we often push away sorrow, loneliness, or disappointment to seem resilient. This buried pain accumulates and can explode as unexplained anger, numbness, or destructive habits during moments of stress, surprising us with how far we stray from calm and reason. Recognizing these common modern shadows with Stoic clarity is the first practical step toward freedom. None of them make you unique in your struggle. They are shared human experiences across time. By naming them calmly, without judgment, you begin to reduce their hidden power and move toward actions that truly reflect your deepest values and wisdom. Number 7. Signs your shadow is speaking. Your shadow communicates not through clear words, but through subtle and often uncomfortable signs that most of us ignore or explain away at first. One of the clearest signals is strong emotional reactions that seem out of proportion to the situation. Sudden intense anger at a small criticism, overwhelming jealousy over a friend's success, or deep irritation at something trivial. These disproportionate feelings point directly to a hidden wound or denied need rising to the surface. Another common sign is projection. When you find yourself judging someone else harshly for a trait that secretly bothers you about yourself. You feel superior or outraged at their selfishness, laziness, or arrogance, yet later realize the same quality lies unnoticed within you. This outward judgment is the shadow's way of trying to bring attention to what you refuse to see inside. Recurring dreams, fantasies, or intrusive thoughts often carry messages from shadow. You might dream repeatedly of forbidden actions, wild freedom, or intense conflict. These are not random, but symbolic expressions of repressed energy seeking outlet. Daytime fantasies about quitting everything, raging at someone, or indulging without limit serve the same purpose if we pay calm attention. Physical symptoms can signal the shadow too. Unexplained tension, chronic fatigue, or sudden addictive cravings often arise when emotional energy is bottled up too long. The body speaks what the mind represses, and Stoics knew well that ignoring inner disturbance eventually shows in outer health and behavior. A subtle but powerful sign is admiration mixed with discomfort towards certain people. When you feel drawn to someone's boldness, creativity, or raw emotion, yet simultaneously critical or envious, you're often meeting your own denied qualities reflected in them. The shadow uses attraction and repulsion to highlight what you have disowned. Learn to notice these signs with the same calm observation the Stoics applied to all passions. They are not enemies or failures, but messengers asking for acknowledgement. By meeting them directly and wisely, you prevent bigger eruptions and turn hidden signals into guides for deeper self-understanding and virtuous living. Number 8. The danger of ignoring the shadow. Ignoring the shadow does not make it smaller or weaker. It allows it to grow unchecked in the darkness, gathering strength until it forces its way out at the worst possible moments. The longer we deny its existence, the more dramatic and destructive its eventual expressions become, turning small impulses into major regrets that damage relationships, reputation, and inner peace. Repression creates a false sense of control. We believe we are fully reasonable and virtuous while the shadow prepares its rebellion. This illusion leads to shocking moments where we act completely out of character, betraying values, hurting others, or sabotaging ourselves, and then face the painful aftermath of confusion and self-doubt. Over time, ignored shadows drain vital energy. The constant effort to keep them buried exhausts the mind and body, leading to anxiety, depression, or chronic dissatisfaction that no external success can heal. Stoics warned that what we flee within ourselves pursues us relentlessly until faced. Unexamined shadows often lead to repeated cycles of the same regrets. We promise ourselves never again after an outburst or mistake, yet without addressing the root, the pattern returns stronger. This repetition deepens shame and erodes trust in our own character and resolve. On a deeper level, ignoring the shadow prevents true wholeness and authenticity. We live only half a life, cut off from our full vitality, creativity, and strength. The positive potentials hidden alongside the negative remain untapped, leaving us feeling somehow incomplete despite outward achievements. The Stoic path reminds us that avoidance brings suffering while courageous examination brings freedom. Facing the shadow directly is not comfortable, but is far less painful than the slow destruction of living divided against yourself. Choose the clear-eyed path now. Your future peace depends on it. Number 9. How great Stoics dealt with their shadows. Even the greatest Stoics were fully human and carried shadows like everyone else, but they met them with remarkable honesty and discipline. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, wrote his meditations as private reminders to himself about his own impatience, vanity, and anger, naming his hidden flaws daily without excuse or harshness. He openly acknowledged moments when irritation or desire threatened his calm, using these as opportunities to practice virtue rather than sources of shame. By bringing his shadow into the light of reason each night, he prevented it from controlling his actions during the pressures of ruling an empire. Epictetus, born a slave, carried the shadow of resentment toward injustice and loss of freedom. Yet he transformed this raw energy into unbreakable inner liberty. He taught that no external condition could touch what truly matters, our choices, and live this truth despite physical pain and hardship. Seneca, wealthy and powerful, wrestled with shadows of greed, ambition, and hypocrisy. His letters reveal honest struggles with living simply while surrounded by luxury, using writing and reflection to keep his lower impulses under reason's guidance, rather than letting them rule secretly. These Stoics did not achieve perfection. They achieved mastery through constant awareness. They understood that the shadow never disappears entirely, but can be directed toward good when met with clarity, humility, and persistent practice of virtue. Their example shows the practical path available to all of us. Examine yourself daily, accept your full humanity without illusion, and guide all parts of the self with reason. This is how ordinary people become extraordinary, through calm confrontation rather than denial. Number 10. Building a daily practice for shadow work. Lasting change comes not from dramatic moments, but from small, consistent daily practices that gently bring the shadow into awareness. Begin each morning with a short premeditation. Quietly visualize potential triggers for the day and commit to observing any strong reactions calmly rather than acting them out. Throughout the day, cultivate pauses. Whenever you notice rising emotion, irritation, defensiveness, craving, stop for 3 slow breaths and name the feeling honestly. This brief interruption prevents automatic shadow reactions and builds the habit of conscious choice. Evening review is essential. Spend 10 quiet minutes asking 3 simple questions. What went well today? Where did I fall short? And what hidden impulse was at work? Write brief answers without judgment, noticing patterns over weeks and months. Weekly, take longer time for deeper reflection. Review recurring regrets or strong emotions, tracing them back to core fears or needs. Ask what virtuous action could meet that need directly rather than through shadow impulses. Combine these practices with physical discipline, regular exercise, simple eating, enough sleep to keep the body calm and reduce the shadow's raw intensity. The Stoics knew that caring for the body supports mastery of the mind. Be patient and persistent. Progress feels slow at first, but small daily acts compound into profound change. Over months, you will notice fewer regrets, clearer choices, and deeper peace. This simple routine turns shadow work from theory into lived wisdom, available to anyone willing to begin today.